Welcome to Zoom. Enter your meeting ID followed by enter your participant ID followed by pound. You are in the meeting now. There are 15 participants in the meeting. This meeting is being recorded.
It's 12:02. If we can let everybody in. All right. So whenever you're ready, Jeff, for a roll call.
Okay. Commissioner Batimana,
Here.
Commissioner Boyd,
Here.
Commissioner Guster,
Here.
Commissioner Carp,
Here.
Commissioner Pecora,
Here.
Commissioner Swanberg,
Here.
and Commissioner Transu. We're all here.
We are all here. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Approval of the agenda, you have it on the screen.
I can't see the whole agenda. I'd like to see the whole agenda.
I would just like to clarify, under new business D, does that include the FOIA request by Mallory Hoyt?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Let me ask the question. How do who does the agenda? And how do we specifically get items on the agenda?
Beth puts the stuff in. It's supposed to be the stuff that was talked about at the previous meeting, and then I usually try to take notes of that so that I can give it to her, and then she sends it out to me, Ruby, and Rabbi Karb to make sure that the stuff that was requested to be on the agenda is on the agenda at the next meeting. I was out of the office last week, so I'm guessing Ruby and Rabbi Karb talked to Beth about the items on the agenda.
So is there a way that we get stuff that's for emergency need to get on the agenda? Am I in the impression that when things get on the agenda, that is done from the previous meeting, and that's how it gets to be a new item, or we are discussing old business?
Yeah, that's usually how it would go, unless it's something that comes up from staff and we add it, like a complaint or something. Like B, like we would add that.
So if we're talking about discussion in-person meetings, should not that have came up at last meeting as well? I know that we got the issue with the complaint from Mallory from the city attorney's office. So how do those two items pop up now? And we haven't had any discussion on them as to what we were going to discuss and how we need to proceed on those.
Beth sent an email and I just responded. If we could put it in the agenda. So.
I guess the question that I'm asking, Madam Chair, is that the right procedure or the process that we are supposed to do, or are we supposed to do it during the commissioners' meeting? Because I know that for a fact that I tried to talk on something last month and it was not on the agenda and I couldn't talk about it, or it wasn't requested to be on the agenda. And I want to be clear for myself, and I want to make sure that we are consistent throughout this process, and that I don't come back and say something that inadvertently starts any more problems or issues more than what we already have within this commission and with the city staff. So I guess right now, is that the way that we are supposed to do it? That you just pop
No.
up and put them up there without the commission, the entire commission of knowledge?
No, it's usually done at the previous meeting. That way everybody is aware, so that in between meetings, you're not having individual commissioners just kind of email staff and say, hey, add this to the agenda, add that to the agenda, and nobody knows how it got on the agenda.
Actually, the discussion of in-person meetings would fit better under old business, because we've had that discussion in the past, decided not to yet schedule in-person meetings. So it's a revisiting of that discussion.
Rabbi Kopp, the old business piece is not an issue with me. What is an issue with me is what we are putting on here as new business, and how does it get on here? Is it done at the previous meeting, or is it at anybody's option, any commissioner's option, to call and say, I want this on the agenda for this particular meeting without discussion at the previous meeting? That's what I want to get clarified. And so if we can get that clarified, that provides more continuity in terms of our mission and what we are doing, and precludes us from these type of conversations prior to the meeting.
Yeah, the process is to discuss it at the previous meeting, and then it's added to the agenda.
But we have not done that in a while, too, right?
No, we do it every month.
The reason, hey, Madam Chair, the reason why I'm asking that is because I wanted to talk about something, and I was told very specifically that I didn't request for it to get on the agenda, and we couldn't discuss it. And so, the way that I was explained and it was told to me, and that when I went and looked and stuff, I was under the impression that it had to be discussed at the previous meeting to get on the agenda. And so, if it has to be discussed at the previous meeting to get on the agenda, there is two things on here that I see that was not discussed at the previous meeting. I just want to make sure that we are doing things correct, that we're following the process and the procedure, and there's no dysfunction as we move forward, and we can get to doing the people's business and do it in an orderly fashion.
And I remember maybe like a couple months ago, when we were discussing, I think it was Commissioner Boyd asking if we can put something on the agenda, and somebody answered that, any commissioner can add something to the agenda, but we didn't talk about when that request should happen.
Yeah, no, we've talked about it several times, and Commissioner Boyd's request was to whether or not she needed a vote to add something to the agenda. She needed to make a motion and vote to add something to the agenda. And it was explained that that was not needed, but it is always discussed at the previous meeting, adding something to the agenda. Otherwise, you have no control over what's going on the agenda. It's never been discussed, and people are surprised when they get the agenda.
So we should put something below before adjournment about.
It is its next meeting.
this discussion for
Absolutely, that,
this meeting's agenda.
Maybe that last entry could read next meeting agenda items or something, just to make it clear to everybody. Because otherwise it just looks like setting the time and date. So
Yeah.
maybe we could
So,
make it
so would
clear.
it be
I think
before
everybody has been
adjournment?
involved. Well, everybody has. This has never been an issue. I mean, everyone has been involved in the discussion, and apparently, it's been clear that you bring it up during the previous meeting and say you want it added to the agenda, and I just take notes on what's supposed to be added, and then I add it. We'll give it to Beth to add, and that has been the process.
So the discussion for in-person meetings, that was not discussed at the last meeting, and nobody asked that it be on the agenda at the last meeting for this meeting. Is that where we're at?
Janelle, yes, I mean, I'm trying to, I want to follow what the process is. I want to understand that, so as we move forward, we're not here again, and
Sure.
we can be more more ready to discuss the business of what our mission is. And I just don't want, if one person can do something, then we all can do something. And I'm a process person, and I don't like it when I see something, irregardless of how urgent of the matter of a particular thing is. I don't like it when I've seen somebody else told that you can't do something, and then I find out, here I am seeing something, and it's being done, and it doesn't sit well with me, guys. And and I just want to make sure that we are doing things in the right process, that we're following our right procedure. That's all.
Well, to move this along, I guess I would suggest, or I would move that if new business C, discussion for in-person meetings, was not mentioned at the last meeting to be on this agenda, I would move that it be put forward to the next agenda for the July meeting.
I would second that.
Did you second, Rabbi Karp?
Yes, I did. I second.
Okay.
So everybody in favor of moving the discussion for in-person meeting to the next meeting in July?
I'm not sure what it is.
It was just, I know, I was just gonna ask if everybody's okay to start, doing face-to-face again, but that's okay too. I know we kind of touched on that subject before. That's why Rabbi Karp said earlier to be in the old business, but it doesn't matter. If everybody wants to move that discussion to the next meeting, that's okay. We just have to vote on it. So everybody in favor of moving that to the next meeting, say aye.
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 So was that everybody? Aye. All right. Not sure if,
Anyone opposed?
anybody opposed?
Okay.
Any discussion? No, they want to move it. Okay.
So then the question becomes the D, and
Yeah.
I guess my question is, I mean, as Latrice has said, when something comes up between meetings that is kind of, nature of a complaint or an external thing like this, where time would seem to be of the essence and we need to make decisions on it, that seems to me to be a legitimate item for placement on the agenda. Certainly we all had notice of it. We all got an email about it. We've all had time to review, or more than one email. We've all had time to review it. So it shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. And I guess I have concern that if it were to be held over, I mean, I think time is of the essence on this matter, so I think it does need to be on the agenda today. Mike, does that seem okay to you?
You're muted.
I think that what has to happen is that we probably got to vote to amend the agenda, and I think I would be good with that process.
So do we need a motion to amend the agenda?
Let me go ahead and finish though. But what I'm saying is that we need to make sure that when we do this here, that we can at least have some knowledge of it and we know what we're doing. I understand that I was on vacation, so I'm gonna tell you guys, I disconnected for the entire time I was gone. I looked at the email when I got back from Mallory Hort and stuff, and so, which was yesterday. And I glanced over it like I did about 100 other emails that I had in my email box. And so, and I hope, if this is making some people a little uncomfortable, I really apologize in that fact. But I gotta be where I'm at. And so, I'm concerned about the way some things are happening. I'm concerned that I just can't be passive about some things, and we've got to talk about it. When even this situation here in item D, the toxic relationship that's between this commission and the city office over there, Mallory's office over there is terrible. And it can't be an adversary relationship. And so I'm eager to tackle that, but I want to make sure that we're doing it in the right fashion and we're doing it in the right procedure, policy-wise.
I guess I could clarify that doesn't need any commission action, so it's definitely referenced in the director's report, so.
Well, I would think it does require a commission decision. I mean, I think the commission needs to decide how this is going to be dealt with, what our response is going to be. We have liability, financial liability, if nothing else, if we run afoul of either the open meetings law or the public records law. We are liable, and I think we need to go on the record individually as to how we stand on this. So I think the commission does need to act.
So what you're suggesting would not be something that's discussed in open session, then you're discussing a legal matter, and so that would be discussed in closed session.
Yeah.
But I don't think that that's what the complaint requests. It requests specific items and a response, and I don't think it requires the commission to vote on anything.
Well, I think it does.
Okay.
Okay. So we've approved the agenda, right? Everybody voted.
No, there was no vote to
No,
approve the agenda.
we're still in discussion.
Well,
Okay.
Folks, I need to say something, okay? And I want you to understand it in context, because the reason I missed the special meeting was because I suffered a stroke. And the incident in 20 months, I'm waiting to hear from Mayo whether they're going to be accepting me as a patient. And I share all that with you, not only just for informational purposes, but I mean, there's only so much stress and conflict that I can handle right now and try to remain healthy. I think that, I agree with Janelle that when something like this comes up, We had, you know, they're just, you know, we cannot delay this month. We have to talk about this, you know, as it comes up in our next meeting. I also think that, when there is an issue like this that comes up, there is an issue that is, of time sensitive, that we need to be able to empower our chair to add it to the agenda. You know, because it's an exceptional issue, not that could have been discussed last month and didn't, or could be discussed could be added to next month's agenda. I think that we need to do this, but we need to stop going at it with each other. We need to get down to business. And I don't think this is healthy. We go back and forth on issues like this.
Yeah.
I agree.
I want to say something, guys, because, Rabbi Kopp, my sympathy is with you and your condition. Certainly wish you the best there. But I want to say something, guys, and I want to be very clear. And this process and the things that we are dealing with has been a process that's been taking place over a few years. And there is a somewhat of a relationship process, a problem within this here commission. And then there is a relational process or problem with the city. And so, you know, and the only way to solve that is to talk about it and to have a healthy discussion about it. You just can't sweep it up under the rug. And so, I said that to say this. We as members or as commissioners have always got to respect one another. Now, I don't have a problem with talking about this here or anything like this here. And it does have liability for commissioners if the right avenue is not taken in terms of a response to a complaint of this nature. I know that I've read up on it, but don't expect me to be quiet when something is not right, guys. Don't expect that out of me. And I want everyone to hear that on this here line today. Thank you very much.
Okay, so I
Mike.
think we have to now approve the agenda. We still haven't, and it's 12:25.
Okay.
I think we need a motion to
Do
amend
we have
the
a
agenda.
motion? We did a motion to amend.
No, we
right?
didn't. No.
What's the motion?
So are we just amending C?
No, the
It'd
C
be a
would be
motion.
for the next meeting.
D. Right, but that's
It-
pushing it to the next meeting, right?
Right, so we would
Yeah.
need a motion to amend the agenda to take that off, and then,
Okay, so, anybody?
or approve with the exception of C.
Which we kind of, I mean,
We did.
I
yeah,
move the approval of the
Yeah.
agenda with the deletion of
Yeah.
5 new business C, discussion for in-person meetings.
Okay,
right. And Henry seconded it, all approved. So we're just taking C off and putting it on the next agenda. Okay.
yes. So are we good? Yes,
I think we're good.
we are good. I'm moving. All right, so we'll go to, approval of minutes for May 11th. It's a regular meeting.
I move we approve the minutes of May 11th.
Second.
Okay, everybody in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Raise your hand.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, nobody. So the, regular meeting minutes for May 11th is approved. And then the next one would be the May 20th, meeting. So,
I think there were some things added or something to this one because I know that with our names, I did not type it that way. So I don't know how that got messed up there.
Just a formatting issue, maybe?
I guess,
The
yeah.
formatting.
When I sent it to Beth, it wasn't like that. So I don't know if something just got added or she sometimes, makes the
Well, I think
format.
it's clear who was present.
Yeah,
Yeah, it shows.
I just wanted everyone to know that wasn't
Yeah.
typed that way.
We can correct the formatting.
Yeah.
So we need a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve them.
I second the motion.
Okay. So the special meeting minutes for May 20th. Everybody in favor or to approve that, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, nobody. So special meeting minutes for May 20th, now approved.
Please note that I abstained because I was not present.
Oh. With Rabbi
Okay.
Carp abstaining. Then we move on to the director's report.
Okay, so we had no right to sue letters issued in May, no cases settled in May. The report looks a little wonky because there was a case settled in the earlier month and it was, I think it kicked itself off, so we had to add it back. So it looks like one settled in May, but it was settled earlier. We planned and had a session called Breaking Bonds, where we talked about the war on drugs and the role that the DHS system plays on that, as far as like penalizing parents who use drugs and removing children from home and kind of conflating poverty with neglect. We're having an upcoming meeting or an event this Friday at 5:30 at Vanderveer, where we're going to be doing a screening of the movie Push Out and a discussion after the movie. So we're working on getting statistics together for that and data as far as our local information relating to that.
And I'll be a part of that discussion and meeting.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be there as long as I can, but I have a 7:30 appointment that night, so I don't know if it lasts over an hour and a half or not.
The movie is a little over an hour. I think it's 74 minutes. And
Oh,
then we're going to allow for an hour of discussion.
okay.
So at least you'll get to see the whole movie.
Yeah.
We had some pre-hearing and post-hearing preparation stuff going on. Continuing to monitor the COVID impact on the office. I want to plan a staff meeting to kind of go over where we stand. We're going to continue to keep our mask requirement in the office. I think it still puts us at the same kind of
Okay, all right. Okay, love you, man.
Position with people coming in without a mask, and how do we engage that and work through that. There were 2 laws that were put in place recently prohibiting inquiries into people's vaccination status, and that also impact kind of local mask requirements. So kind of working through that and figuring out a new process for the office, and I think we need to have a full staff meeting and kind of go over that and figure out how exactly we want to move forward. So that's a thing that we are still working on.
Latrice?
Yeah.
All the members of the staff, vaccinated?
We would not be allowed to discuss that. That's their medical information.
Yeah, but I mean, they're allowed to share it if they wish. Like, I can tell you, I'm fully vaccinated. That's not against the law.
I am too.
So that was one of the laws that was passed. You're not allowed to ask about people's vaccination status. So yeah. So figuring out how to move forward with that in mind. It's yeah. Everything's fine. We have staff working on investigations. I don't think we had anything big come up. But we do have that event Friday, so we encourage everybody to come. And then the ongoing harassment and bullying of commission staff. So that relates to the complaint filed with the Iowa Public Information Board. So obviously I was out of the office last week. And there was apparently lots of activity. So the harassment from the legal department has been going on for several years now, and I personally have asked for intervention from the commission, from the mayor, from council, from HR, the administrator, and no one is intervening. And it is ridiculous. So there was a request made for the video from the last meeting. Ruby responded to the request immediately and said, yeah, we'll get it to you. Staff has obviously spoken to Janelle numerous times, and she explained to them that the commission had not approved me providing that link. So there would need to be a FOIA request submitted the way that they've done in the past. For whatever reason, there was this lengthy letter sent to the commission blaming staff, I guess, because Beth and I did not also respond in addition to Ruby's response. So neither Beth nor myself had any indication that anybody was expecting a reply from us, and no one has followed up with us to ask us anything about the request. So we had no idea that there was an expectation that we were going to reply in addition to Ruby's reply. So that part of the letter to the commission was just ridiculous. In addition to that, if the city attorney believes that the city is in an adversarial position to the commission, then as the commission's counsel, she has no business communicating directly with the commission because the commission has an attorney. So correspondence should come through the attorney, especially correspondence threatening legal action. So that's an issue. And then you have her submitting a complaint to the Iowa Public Information Board claiming that I refused to answer a FOIA, which is due June 10th. So the letter that I sent on June 1st clearly says that it's regarding her letter to the commission. It does not in any way lead anyone to believe that it is a response to the FOIA request, which would go through the city clerk's office, which she's well aware of. The city clerk sends over the FOIA request with an email that says, send the documents back to me, and then I will reply to the request. That's how FOIAs have been handled. That's what the email says. So it's unclear why she would then send a complaint to the Public Information Board claiming that this was a response to the FOIA, aside from it being retaliation and harassment. That is, oh, go ahead.
Is there any way that we could get with her, you know, and like have her be a part of a meeting, and we can try and discuss and understand things? It all came so fast. I was surprised that you know, the next day something was being sent out to the committee, the whatever the organization is that it was filed with.
Mm-hmm.
I was surprised that we, you know, didn't have a chance to discuss and understand just what's going on.
Well, I think that goes back to it being bullying and harassment and retaliation. So my letter very clearly outlined how her actions have been a continuation of a pattern and practice of harassment that I think is based on race and sex, and retaliation for assisting people with complaints when they have complaints against the city. And apparently no one thinks that they should intervene, and seemingly some commissioners believe that they should participate with her on the harassment. So then that takes me to the next issue of
who's the person ahead of, who's the person above her in terms of her position?
The city attorney, and then the mayor and council are supposed to supervise the city attorney. So I've reported her before to the city attorney, and it looks like a staff member has posted in the chat about the interactions that they've had. So not only has she engaged in harassment towards myself, but she's also engaged in inappropriate behavior towards other staff members. And that's included in those attachments to the letter that I sent. But this has been an ongoing issue, and no one wants to intervene. And it needs to stop. And it also should not be framed as an issue of, well, there's both sides, so people need to come together, because it's not a matter of coming together. It's a matter of they are behaving in inappropriate conduct, and it needs to stop. So you had the legal department submitting a false claim to EEOC, Brian Heyer claiming that he FOIA'd information from me and I refused his request. And then after lying to Janelle when she asked about it, he then, oh, well, maybe I misspoke. He did. I don't know that he got in any trouble for that. There was no apology. There was no reconciliation with EEOC to say, oh, I submitted a false statement. That's not what happened. And it's been ongoing. And the perception seems to be that I should just take it, which is ridiculous, especially coming from the commission that enforces the laws that are in place to prevent this behavior. And these are things that violate the terms of our federal contracts, and they violate the terms of the city's federal contracts. And I'm to the point where I think that they should be reported to DOJ. And I think it's definitely an effort to interfere with the work of the commission, with the efficacy of the commission. It's harassment of public officers. I mean, this is ridiculous, what is going on here. And the fact that no one has anything to say, specifically, I sent in the letter, the email to the commission asking for some action to be taken, and Ruby responded saying, why don't I just give her what she's asking for? Which is really the equivalent of telling someone in an abusive relationship that they should just behave and then they won't get beat. I mean, that's ridiculous. And that is just, I cannot believe that that is the solution that is offered, especially when this has been ongoing and I have been complaining about it over and over again. I emailed Ruby back in March saying I wanted to file a complaint about this ongoing harassment, specifically the legal department going into my email and publishing my emails on the city's FOIA site. Ruby did not respond to me. I sent her a follow-up email in April. She still did not respond to me. I have not received a response to date. There has been no action taken about the legal department going into my email and publishing emails so that they could try to dox people who they think spoke to me about the policing reforms initiative. This is harassment and it needs to be addressed. This is bullying. This is a toxic workplace. This needs to be addressed, and it needs to be addressed in the context of a Title VII lawsuit or complaint, or Title VIII, or Title VI, or 1981, or 1983. This is a constitutional violation, and this is a violation of my civil rights. It's a violation of the civil rights of staff. It's a violation of the rights of staff to work in a workplace where they are not subjected to toxicity and harassment on a daily basis. This is a hostile working environment, and it needs to be addressed.
I was concerned when you had to deal as much with the letter that you wrote. I saw the amount of time that it must have taken to put that together, and I was concerned about that.
Yes, a considerable amount of staff time is wasted in engaging the city on their harassment tactics. And the silence of council, the mayor, the city administrator, HR, no one finds the previous solution for her harassment was for her not to talk to staff. Like, that should not be the resolution. That's not how you handle inappropriate behavior. There needs to be prompt remedial action taken. I should not have to keep complaining about the same thing and there being a complete failure to take any action. This is ridiculous. I mean, that took me hours to go through and find out, find all of this information to correct misinformation. The letter that she submitted, the complaint that she submitted to the Public Information Board is libelous, it's slander. To frame it as a refusal to reply to the FOIA request, which isn't due until June 10th. How is it a refusal and the date that it's due hasn't even passed? You haven't received anything that says we're not responding to this. In fact, you received an out of office reply from me. So she knew that I was out of the office. I should not have to come back from vacation, from dealing with harassment, to deal with more harassment because I took a vacation.
So we need to lay out what we need to do in terms of this.
I think the commission needs to demand that this stop. I mean, there should be a demand to council, the city administrator, the mayor, that this stop. We've spoken to Rabbi Karp and Janelle, and I spoke to the mayor, and he said that he was going to tell them to stop, to cut it out. That was almost 2 years ago. Still hasn't been cut out. I mean, I don't know.
Maybe we need to put it in writing, coming from the commission, cataloging every single incident of harassment. I mean, Cody has in the chat has spoken about how he has a file that he's been keeping of the harassment he's received. And
it's been ongoing. Mallory lied. There was a HUD investigator conducting an investigation. Mallory lied and told this HUD investigator that the civil rights commissioners were attending the city's termination meetings and soliciting people to file complaints against the city. And so naturally that then creates the situation where we're being dragged into to rebut this allegation. But why are they allowed to just throw out false allegations and then we're expected to just deal with it? I agree, Rabbi Karp, perhaps a written demand from the commission takes some action. I don't know, but it definitely needs to be addressed.
I think it needs to be a written demand from the commission taking such action. But now, what is if they do not respond, if they do not take such action, what do we do? Go to EOJ?
Yeah, I think the commission can file a complaint with DOJ.
Well, then I think we need to also say that in that document, that these are these issues of harassment. They have to, in these incidents of harassment and this catalog of things that have been inappropriate. And this constitutes major harassment on the part of the city, of the staff of the Civil Rights Commission. We call upon we call upon, whether it be the mayor, the city council, the city attorney, and I think we ought to copy them to all of it, that this be brought to, that this such harassment be brought to an immediate halt, or we will have no alternative but to file a formal complaint with the EOJ. And if we tell them that, here's what they've been doing, that, this is harassment, they have to stop. If they don't stop, we will take that action forward. And that's, maybe that's the best way at the moment to deal with this.
Do we need to go?
One last chance to do the right thing.
Do we as a commission need to go before the city council and just be, on their agenda and just discuss it, or just,
Yeah, Celine, this is Mike. I think you hit on something there. I think in conjunction with what Rabbi Karp has said, that probably 2 or 3 commissioners ought to start with the city administrator, and we've got to seek a way to diffuse this toxic relationship. I mean, and we've got to the relationship piece has to be rebuilt, and so, and I think we can seek to tone down this issue with the city attorney and the other piece from the city as well. So I think 2 or 3 commissioners ought to take that on and go over and do it and try to put it to bed. I think that's probably the best way. And then if that don't work, then you can move up the chain.
Well, and I have a question. So, Latrice, it seems to me that you will need to respond to the FOIA, and you've got until June 10th to do that. And I think you can put in your response the fact that, the legal department really jumped the gun by filing with the Public Information Board prematurely. And then I think you can say the same thing in your response to the Public Information Board. And again, I think, if that's what the commission decides we should do, and I guess there are underlying questions about this whole thing about the recording of the meetings and going on the website, and I think we need to talk about the legalities of, you know, recording the meetings, whether the video should be posted, whether we have any control about that, because it seems to me that under the code, once something is recorded, then the recording becomes a public record, and anybody can request it and anybody can publish it. So I think we need to find a way for members of the public who don't want to comment at our meetings and be recorded doing that and having that on the website. I think we need to find a way for members of the public to reach out to the commission in a way that is not public, but brings an issue to our attention so that the issue can be addressed without any concern for particular individuals and their identity being known. I don't know what other people think about that, but that seems to be a fundamental question to me, and that's where a lot of these problems have arisen.
I think the issue have arisen with them wanting to control how the commission functions, which is something that is outside of their control. And that needs to be reiterated, apparently, that they do not get to dictate how the commission functions as long as the commission is functioning in accordance with the law. They do not get to tell the commission where to have its meetings. That is something within the authority of the commission. They do not get to tell the commission that they have to record their meetings. That is something that is within the authority of the commission. If they had the authority to dictate that, then presumably they would have exercised legal action to enforce that. And they haven't, because they know that they don't have authority to do so. But instead, the action was to create this false impression that I have done something to block giving something to them when all they had to do was follow the normal process. So if anybody from the public wanted something from the city or any of the subunits of the city that constitutes a public record but isn't publicly available, they FOIA it. They won't give you anything that isn't. I noticed that Mallory Hoyt certainly has not responded to my letter and the request for information that I included in my letter. So if the process is that you can submit a request for something and you get it, then why has she not done so? Why has she not responded to my questions immediately? Because any other work that she has to do should be dropped and my request should be responded to immediately. And I think a bigger thing is, if you look through all of their requests and their demands to get this information immediately, they were not even uploading the videos on the website. But for whatever reason, the commission's videos needed to be given to them when they said so immediately. We are understaffed. We don't have the resources to deal with foolishness. I don't know what else to describe it as. But we also shouldn't have to deal with foolishness, even if we were adequately staffed. We should not have to deal with that. There should be a professional environment where if you wanted to do this, then you submit it through the proper channels and you wait to receive it. But to demand this expediency, like it needs to happen right now because this is when I said to do it, that's ridiculous. That's, again, trying to supervise the staff of the commission. Supervise the commission. That is not within their authority. And that needs to be reiterated, clarified, however it needs to be done. That needs to be said.
Well, I think that needs to be in our response to the FOIA request and our response to the Public Information Board. Certainly, at a minimum.
So where are we now?
I haven't heard any further response to the issue with Ruby seeming to participate right along with the legal department in this and ignoring my emails. But I guess we'll talk about that when we get to the agenda item for communication. So I don't have anything further on the director's report.
Okay.
Well, do we need to, approve, to make into a motion, Michael's suggestion about, a subcommittee of the commission, compiling a document, to be presented to the city?
I guess that would go under the Public Information Board complaint section of the new business.
Okay,
With that not being on the agenda, we can, that specific issue, but that, yeah, I guess that would be discussed under D,
okay.
which probably is now C.
Is that all of your report, Latrice?
Yep.
Yeah.
I would move the acceptance of the director's report and case status report for May.
I second.
Okay. Oops, Ruby, you're on mute.
Oh, geez.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you. I saw your.
I was like, nobody's responding to me. Okay, so y'all didn't hear. Director's report for the month of May is approved, and then we can move on to the new business.
Didn't vote on it though, Ruth.
I moved the acceptance of the report, and that was seconded. So I think we do need to vote.
Oh, yeah, because you guys didn't hear me. So everybody in favor of approving the May report,
The motion is acceptance. I think that's what we do. We don't approve it, we just accept it.
Oh, okay, to accept the director's report for May. Say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Okay. Anybody opposed? Okay, so the director's report for May is accepted, and then we can move on to new business.
I guess I'll start. So, I emailed Ruby back in March to state that I wanted to file a complaint regarding the legal department going and looking through my emails and publishing them online in an attempt to dox people who they believe had spoken to me about the policing reforms issue. This was a FOIA request that was submitted that Janelle and I worked on and responded to. And then after we submitted our response, they then went through my emails and published them, even though they were not in any way related to the actual request. I I did not receive a response to that. We discussed it at the meeting. I then sent a follow-up that I did not receive a response to it. I still did not receive a response to it. So that's been hanging out there for 90 days, which is not prompt remedial action. We have the issue with the letter regarding budget. That was drafted. We worked on it. We sent that over. It was my understanding that Ruby was supposed to sign it and send it out to the members of council and the mayor, asking what they thought the deficiencies were with the budget and why they felt that the commission did not need any additional funding. Ruby sent the letter to Beth to tell her to, a letter that's unsigned, I should clarify, for Beth to send out to the mayor and council, which commissioners cannot send directives to staff. So that's one issue. But then also, if this is a letter coming from the commission, it should come from the chair of the commission, not from the agency's administrative assistant, because Beth would not be fielding those inquiries from the mayor and council. So I responded to Ruby and said that, and I never received a response. This is been ongoing, and then we see, especially through those attachments to the letter that I sent June 1st, Ruby seems to respond to every white person who emails her immediately, or at least within 24 hours. But when I email her, she doesn't respond. And I noticed that when Michael Guster emailed her, she also did not respond. So I think that that is an issue that needs to be addressed. And then I got an email from Rich Pecora saying that he thought that people who have a criminal record should not be employed by the city unless council approves their employment. And I'm not sure what that related to, but that's a violation of our ordinance. It's a violation of our federal contract. And it's conveying a discriminatory statement. And that should not be acceptable from anyone with the city, especially not civil rights commissioners. And it looks like you all received that as well. So, and I didn't, yeah. So those are and I don't know if anybody has anything further to say, but those are just a brief list of things that I think need to be addressed.
So Rabbi Karp and I have spoken about the letter several times. I have no time to do 11 letters, and that's why I sent that to Beth. My fault that I did not send the request through you. But when I responded that I don't have a letterhead that I can, that I can copy and paste, Rabbi Karp responded with, with an embedded letter in the email. And then we didn't get any response on that. And so
you did receive a response. I asked you whether or not you had the letterhead. You said that you did not.
Right.
And so I had Beth send over the letter to you on letterhead, and you sent it back to her unsigned and directed her to send out individual letters to each council member and the mayor, which is not a thing that commissioners would be doing because you don't have authority to direct staff to take action. So, and also, if the letter is coming from the commissioner, from the commission, it should come from the chair of the commission. It should be a communication from you to the mayor and council, not from the agency's administrative assistant. But I responded to you and you never replied back to me. So I don't even think that the issue necessarily is the procedural aspect of it, because I think that that's clear that you don't jump over the director and go and talk to staff and assign them tasks. I think the issue is that I emailed you, I think on May 11th, and you have not responded to date.
So I sent that letter to Beth so she can individually address that to the council members and the mayor.
Again,
But for me to do that, and again, it was my fault that I didn't request that through you. But you knew about it too.
No, I did not. That I saw your request at the same time that Beth did, and you cannot assign the task to staff, and you were supposed to send it. So I think, again, the logistics of why you haven't sent the letter still, I think is a moot point at this point. I think it does still need to be sent, but the issue is that I sent the response to you on May 11th, and this is June 8th, and I have not received a response.
You have not received a response about what? About the letter?
So again,
I don't
I'm
wanna,
not sure what the issue is.
I don't want to go over and over this again. So
Right, and I'm not
we've
sure
already
what the
spoken,
issue
Rabbi
is.
Karp.
Am I speaking, Ruby, or are you speaking? Because this seems really rude.
But if you do it to me, it's not rude. Double standard here.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, do you want to speak, or can I finish what I was just
So I was
thinking
saying, Rabbi Karp and I have talked about this over and over again. So staff should be able to address that letter, 11 letters, 11 separately.
No staff can,
Okay.
Ruby, you do not assign tasks to staff. Individual commissioners
Okay.
do not do that. Staff has their own assignments to do. If you
Okay.
do not have time, this is something that you signed up to do. You cannot do that. That's one thing. That's just a separate issue of you not responding to me. And for your response to be that you have spoken to Rabbi Karp several times, that does nothing to inform myself or anyone else what it is you are doing. Essentially, what you're saying is that you spoke to Rabbi Karp so that he could speak to me because you're not going to be bothered with speaking to me, which is inappropriate. It's unprofessional.
Okay.
The same way as the last meeting you threw out that I'm not the only one who went to law school, as if I have in any way told someone that I think that that me having gone to law school means that I'm better than them or smarter than them or anything else. If that's an insecurity that you have, that has nothing to do with me. I serve as the commission's counsel, so then I give advice. That's
Okay.
not saying that I am smarter than anyone or anything, but this has been an ongoing issue with communication, and I think that needs to be addressed, and that is my understanding of why it was added
Right.
to the agenda, because we previously discussed this, and it was allegedly resolved with the communication was going to improve going forward, and the communication has not improved going forward. I'm seeing a continuation of the same thing, which is
Okay.
harassment and toxicity.
So in response, okay, first, I'm not trying to, you accuse me of responding to white versus black. I am not that, Latrice, okay? And the way you speak to me is very disrespectful. It should be the other way around, you harassing me and I'm not the one harassing you, because I don't speak to you the way you speak to me, and nobody else have. And every time I speak to you, we get into this argument. Why would I want to get into that all the time? Can't we just, my response to you regarding the regarding the Mallory's request, instead of fighting, can't we just provide them what they need? I don't want this all the time bumping heads. I don't like that. It's stressful. And I have more stress than this is more stressful than my real job. And then I get disrespected every single meeting I go into.
Are you done?
Compared to how long you've spoken.
Again, that's immature and unprofessional. I was literally asking if you were done before I started speaking, or whether you were making a pause. So the issue is that I sent the letter and said that the harassment needs to be addressed. And rather than responding to my request to address the harassment, you say, why don't you just do what she said?
Let me go back to my email.
Is not, excuse me, I'm speaking. The harassment is not a both sides issue. Someone is being harassed. They don't have any responsibility to do anything because they are being harassed. The thought that you're basically saying that I am doing something to cause the harassment, despite you being copied on the vast majority of those emails where you and Janelle spoke with Mallory directly and explained to her what the commission's stance was. So you should know that she would just need to submit the FOIA, and then I respond to the FOIA. So anything beyond that, you should have a position to say, this is not appropriate. You should be responding to her, since you're clearly in direct communication with her, to say, Mallory, why don't you just submit the FOIA and wait to get the response? Instead, you're behaving as though I am somehow causing the conflict. That is white supremacy in action. You're saying that the Black person is the problem, not the white person who is engaging in the behavior. You say that you're not intentionally doing it, but coincidentally, you're responding to white people when they email, and you're not responding to Black people when they email. So accidentally, you're engaging in discrimination, I guess. Because you clearly are not responding to Black people, but you are responding to white people. And you are responding quickly. Whatever your reason is for that, the issue is that it's happening and it impacts the office's functioning. So if you do not think that you have time to serve on the commission, then why are you serving on the commission? If you do not think that you want to speak to me, then why are you serving as the chair? I mean, it doesn't make sense unless it's an action to engage in harassment. And I agree with Kim Brown in the comments. This is definitely appears to be intentional and calculated in an attempt to provoke an angry response. For you to categorize any interactions with you as harassment is ridiculous. I mean, I don't even know what else to say about that. And I'm asking that the commission take some action with this, because this has been going on for months, and I should not have to deal with this either.
So I would just ask everybody, you know, if somebody speaks to you like that, how do you want me to react?
Like what, Ruby?
Mm. I'm asking the commission.
But what I'm asking is,
I don't
like,
know
what?
how
I think
else.
that there is an inability for you to understand cultural differences. And if you perceive cultural differences as disrespect, then that again goes back to white supremacy.
Yeah. It's
You know, one reason
different.
I wanted to go to the ADA convention was to just get a better understanding of things and to sharpen my skills and my ability to, you know, communicate about things. Maybe we as a commission need to have something that would help us to be more accepting, understanding, whatever, you know, the comments that the director and the chair were making, to help us be better as a commission in terms of, yes, training, yes, racist training. Do we have access to, you know, we have so much that we need to do and so much, but it's super important that we be able to communicate respectfully. I actually thought today that our chair was trying to be communicative. So maybe it's a matter of our all needing training. Anybody else willing to jump in the water and make a statement that, you know, like me, sometimes I don't know what, you know, I know where my heart is, I know what I mean, but sometimes my words don't go along with what I need to be saying. So I take a chance on just saying and trusting that you know that I mean well.
And yes, Mr. Boyd, and you also are not going back and engaging in harassment with the city's legal department. So if I'm not that sensitive, we work in civil rights and we see things that are very egregious every day. So I have a really thick skin. This is not, the people who are not engaging with malice, I'm more than capable of working with and you know, figuring out where the gaps are. This, to me, feels malicious. It feels intentional. And we have had previous discussions about it, and it is ongoing. I mean, the request to have a response to my email should not be an extreme request. If I submit a complaint for employment discrimination, I should receive a response. And the response should not be, can't I just get over it? But there's the other complaint that just has been ignored since March 10th. Clearly, Mallory Hoyt has been speaking to Ruby that she has so much information about what Ruby's role was in the May 20th meeting. So Ruby has spoken to her, and rather than Ruby telling her, Mallory, why don't you cut it out and go through the appropriate process? Who knows what she said? But instead, the response to me is, why don't I just do what she said? I mean,
Let me read to you guys what I
harassment.
just,
And it needs to be addressed as harassment. And I have repeatedly requested that it be addressed as a pattern and practice of harassment.
okay. Let me read to you guys what I responded to Latrice with. I said, good afternoon, Latrice. I'm not sure how to react to this. Instead of going at it this way, can we just provide the link? I think
Right.
this would solve the issue and we can all be at peace.
Right. How does that solve the issue of being subjected to harassment? It doesn't.
But it does solve the issue of the city wanting the recording and filing a complaint that it's gotten the recording. So if they get the recording, they have nothing to complain about.
But that's not how you address harassment. And what I asked to be addressed was harassment. So the recording is due June 10th. So as long as they receive it before June 10th, they're fine. But my request specifically was to address the harassment. Legally, there is a duty to do something. And rather than addressing that duty, the response is to be kind or nice or whatever, to try not to be harassed anymore. Keep your head down and just keep walking. That should never be the way that the commission handles harassment of their staff. I mean, that's ridiculous.
This is Mike again. I'm going to suggest what we did up front. What I did up front a few minutes ago is at least a couple of commissioners go and talk to the city administrator and try to diffuse where we are at now and to start to build a better relationship between this commission and the city staff. I think it has to be done. And so, right or wrong was taking the anti-racist training, because there is a tendency here, and I've seen it even on this call here, when we don't understand one another and when we don't, respect the opinion just because you don't like it or you don't particularly share that opinion, shouldn't lead you to be dismissive. So it's one thing that I always try to do, even when I don't like something that is going on or the decision that has been made. is to live for the moment. And I always try to judge whether or not is this worth a fight now, or should I do it down the road with a bigger issue? So, and I can tell you, when a person feels like that they're being harassed, a supervisor, or those that are responsible for supervising that person, has a duty to see that harassment is filed, guys, and stuff. And so to not do so is a major failure on our part. So whether it's not for us to judge the merit, it's for us to make sure that the employees is taken care of and stuff. So I just want to make that very clear. So that's my suggestion, that we send a couple of 2 or 3 commissions over to meet with the city staff and move forward on this particular situation.
I think something needs to be done to address, if Ruby doesn't want to serve as chair, then she needs to not be chair. If Ruby does not want to perform the duties of chair, then why is she chair? And we should not have commissioners who are engaging in blatant discrimination and harassment. So you have Pecора's email to me that very clearly says he would like to engage in discrimination in violation of the terms of our contract with email HUD. And then we have Ruby, who is very clearly racially segregating her responses to emails. And that should not be appropriate either.
Wow.
I'd like to speak a minute. I did not send that email to you. I don't know how it was part of another conversation with another person, and it wasn't meant for you. It was part of another topic I was having. How that happened, I have no idea, but just remember, it wasn't intended for you. It was part of another conversation with another person, and probably in the email process, I hit the wrong button. So there.
It's still discriminatory and it violates our ordinance
Oh, it doesn't
and our
have
contract.
anything to do with you.
The email was to have the city establish an ordinance where they treat people who have a criminal record differently than they treat people who don't. Under the law that the commission enforces, that is employment discrimination. Under the terms of our contract, that is employment discrimination.
You know, we seem to have so much on the table that it's confusing.
I want to support Mike's suggestion, recommendation. I think that there are multiple issues that are folded into one another, and they can throw things really askew. I think that the harassment is an issue in and of itself and needs to be seriously addressed, particularly coming out of the city. I think that so we have a problem with communication between Ruby and Latrice, and there are some embedded feelings that color those communications, and I think I think we have whatever we can do to help work that out is of value not only to Ruby and Latrice, but to the entire commission. I think that what Ruby was suggesting was not joining with Mallory Hoyt in harassment, but what she was suggesting was that when you have someone who's going after you, one of the ways to cut them out at the knees is by to take the oxygen out of the room. If you take away that which they're using, the tool which they're using to register a complaint, then they can't use that tool for their personal harassment. And I do believe that, Latrice, that Mallory has been harassing you, as you pointed out in, I think, one of your emails, that if, as she states in her letter, that it is the policy that all commissions have their open meetings recorded and on the city website, then how come there are very few recordings of the open meetings of other commissions? But she wants to make sure that recordings on the website of every one of our open meetings. I think that's part of the harassment, because that's a hypocrisy to say that this is the policy and you're violating the policy, but others can but ignore that others are theoretically violating that policy, especially since we are an independent commission. We are not like the Library Commission, which is, totally part of the city, that we, by the legislation, have to be independent. So, I think that we need to kind of pull this stuff apart and we shouldn't be letting it, we shouldn't be letting what they're trying to do, what those on the outside are trying to do, get in the way of what we're doing. And that's not supporting harassment. That's not saying give in to harassment, but we need to have open discussions about it to find a way that we all can stand together in the face of it. Because when the city is harassing our staff, it's harassing us. It's harassing the whole commission. And Michael's absolutely right. We need to protect our staff. We that's part of our job. Protect our staff, but also to make sure that we're doing our job and not our staff is doing its job. And not that the staff is not doing its job, but when the city accuses the staff of not doing its job, we have to be able to address that effectively, honestly. And if they're wrong, challenge them on. I've spoken too long.
I agree, Rabbi Carpin. I think that we're saying the same thing. The issue is Ruby knew the process because she was involved in the emails when Janelle explained it. So I'm unclear as to why, if she's speaking to Mallory Hoyt, why she did not address Mallory Hoyt to tell her to do it the proper way. Instead, it is, well, Latrice, why are you complaining about the harassment? Just respond to it. My email to the commission was not a follow-up to her complaint to the Iowa Public Information Board. It was a follow-up to her email to the commissioners, because she is not only alleging that I have done something inappropriate, even though I didn't, she's also alleging that one of my staff members has done something inappropriate, which she didn't. And it's my duty as her supervisor to make sure that I am stepping in and saying something immediately so that that false perception isn't out there, because she should not be being subjected to harassment either. So I need to make sure that I'm taking prompt remedial action to address harassment. And that was the purpose of my email to the commission, and saying this needs to be addressed, the issue of harassment. The issue of the FOIA is a totally separate issue, and that gets responded to in the normal way that a FOIA gets responded to. But the issue of sending letters to the commission complaining about staff is harassment. I mean, it just is. Especially creating this false impression that there's a separate process that there isn't. If the process was for me to record the meeting and send a link, then why the heck is the city on every meeting recording it?
Okay, guys, what is our will and pleasure here? We've been here for about an hour and 37 minutes. And how do we dispose of this?
I want something done about the interactions with Ruby.
Okay, once again, then let's do the two council. Not the two council, the two or three commissioners. We'll look into all of it and bring a recommendation back to the commission at the next meeting in terms of what we found out with Mallory, a recommendation in terms of how we move forward at the commission as well and stuff. And then we will take action at that time as to what our course of action would be. Because I think at this junction we need to look at really where we are in this process and make some good sound recommendations. And so I think that's what we've got to do. We don't have any other choice, because in order for us to do the business that we've got to do, we've got to be we've got to be able to talk to one another. We got to be able to have that level of confidence in what we are doing and what we're looking at. And so right now, I'm not sure we are there. And so I would just suggest that. So
I think that makes sense.
I agree.
Yes. So anything else on that line item?
So I think we have to have it as a motion and a second and a vote.
Yes.
I move that we have 2 or 3 commissioners let's see.
examine the harassment process, as well as talk to the city administrator concerning these issues with the city attorney.
Yes, I so move.
I'll second.
Okay. Everybody in favor say aye or raise their hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Anybody opposed? All right. Do we let people know who those 3 are, or do we wait? Who volunteers?
I think, Ruby, we go ahead and assign those people now. I'm not sure who's on the personnel committee at this time, but we can choose 3 people right now to go ahead and do that and stuff to our liking. So.
Okay.
So the personnel committee is Michael Goster, Ethelene Boyd, and Ruby Fatimana.
Everybody else think that is fine, that's fine with me. So if we want to go another route, then we can do something else differently, so.
The three were Michael, Ruby, and, Ethelene.
Is that good?
I mean, Ruby would probably abstain since it's about her, but, maybe somebody else would like to step in her place.
Abstain on what? What are we voting for?
Mr. Jeff,
I didn't get that. Abstain on what?
from being on the committee of three.
It's about me? So why would I abstain?
It would be investigating and making recommendations about your behavior.
My behavior.
I'd recommend that Commissioners Mike, Jeff, and Rabbi be on the team of three.
I'm
Are
okay.
you all willing?
Is that a yay or a nay?
I'm okay with that. I mean,
I'm okay with it. I don't know if Rabbi Kopp is up to it.
Commissioner Janelle,
Well,
I
Rabbi
don't know.
Carp,
I don't. Go ahead, someone
is
asked.
it too much? Is it too much, Rabbi Carp, for you? We don't want to burden you, but
No,
You'd be
I think,
good.
I think if the mission of this committee is as Mike outlined, that we're dealing with the harassment coming out of the city, and not dealing with and not dealing with the internal problems we have in the commission itself, then I think I can do it. If it's the dealing with what, you know, the ongoing tension on this commission, I don't think I really have the stamina, the emotional and intellectual stamina to handle that right now.
Yeah.
well, is this gonna be separate? I mean, are we just dealing with the city harassment? And then the commission thing separate, or what? Or are we combining this all for some reason?
Let's just do it all and get it out of the way. It's gonna be recommendation that we bring back, so I think that's the only way we're gonna get over some hurdles here. And
Okay, so are you up for that, Rabbi Carp?
Yeah, as I said earlier, I think I can deal with it if it were just city stuff that we're addressing. But I think there's just so much stress that goes with
I agree.
on the interpersonal relations in this commission that I don't know if I could handle that right now.
Well, let's
So I
split
guess
it
the
in-
answer is no.
Well, I
split it
feel,
into two groups. Then let's have Commissioner.
Janelle?
Let's have Commissioner Guster and Commissioner Jeff and Rabbi deal with the city, with the harassment coming out of the city, and let's have maybe Commissioner Janelle and Commissioner Boyd and who else to deal with
Akora,
Akora.
other three. Are you up for that, Rich?
Absolutely not.
Oh.
My opinion is very simple. We're devoting all this time to all these harassment issues and everything else and infighting, and I'm really getting sort of tired of dealing with this. We need to be focused on the mission of the commission and dealing with the problems in the community. And we're going to spend all this time on infighting between ourselves and the city. And I don't want to be part of that.
Well, Mike, I think you intended to be a part of really both components of this. Are you willing to serve on both committees?
I'm willing to serve on both of them, but if you and it doesn't take three. If you and Ethelene want to do the other side, I'm fine with that. I mean,
Okay.
Sorry.
So I think that we would just go at it like that and stuff, and then maybe we can come back together and bring our recommendations.
I think it probably needs to be the same people because if it's two groups of that equal five, it's going to be an open meetings issue because it's a conduit for open meeting meeting. But also, I think that the issues are related. So they all involve employment harassment for commission staff. Whether it's coming from within the commission or external to the commission, we're still being subjected to harassment. And I think that the mission of the commission is to prevent harassment within the city of Davenport. So this is directly in line with the commission's mission. That includes the commissioners not engaging in harassment and city staff not engaging in harassment. So the purpose of the commission is to prevent discrimination and harassment within the city. And this is exhausting. So the same way everybody else is tired of talking about it for 1 hour or 2 hours a month, I'm tired of experiencing it for 60 hours a week. We have a lot of work to do. We are understaffed. We are going above and beyond to make sure that we are there for the community because we are the ones who are directly interacting with community members. And we are expected to do that in addition to being terrorized by city staff. And that should stop. Rabbi Karp last summer said we need to address this issue with the legal department, that what they are doing is terrorizing our staff. And it was my understanding that there was going to be a conversation last summer about that. And it still has not been addressed. I mean, why am I expected to deal with that? I don't understand, other than there is a perception that I should just tough it out, which is, I don't understand. Staff should not just have to tough it out. We are entitled to work in a place where we're not being subjected to harassment. And that should be internally or externally. If I were engaging in the behavior that I'm experiencing, someone would want some action taken.
Okay, Director Lacy, I take to heart your opinion, but I respectfully disagree with the whereas Janelle and Ethelene could handle the internal issue here and can look at how the piece affects the commission here in terms of, as you see it, as harassment.
Mm-hmm.
And then that I consider to be two links, internal and external with the city itself. And that piece, Rabbi Cobb, Jeff, and myself will go and sit down and take on that piece, and each one of us to bring our recommendations back. I don't want to just to lump it all up, and then we spend a lot of time trying to meet in between meetings. Well, a bunch of us already have a bunch of meetings and stuff. So, and I think that we will get better.
You mean bring it back to the next meeting?
Huh?
You mean bring it back to the next meeting?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. I thought you meant you would get together and then have a meeting,
No.
like offline.
Oh,
to
no.
combine the two recommendations outside of a
Oh,
public
no.
meeting. That creates a conduit for a public meeting.
Oh, no. Oh, no. And stuff. So I think if we could do it that way, we can get back to business here and bring it in and hopefully bring it to everybody's satisfaction here.
Well, Michael, we should be filing a complaint, but I don't know who we file it to. Shouldn't we file that as soon as we can?
Well, I think, Jeff, for us, I think we want to talk to the city administrator first. And we want to try to work through some issues there to see if we can fix it from that perspective. And then if we can't fix it, then we figure out the next course of action that we need to proceed with.
And I think we need to compile the list of particular offenses so that when we talk to the city, we say,
absolutely.
Here's the list of offenses. I'd like to ask Janelle if I wind up having to go to Mayo and am knocked out of the batter's box on this, would you be willing to fill my spot?
Sure. I hope that you, Mayo's a great place, and if you need to go to Mayo, I think that's a great place to go. I hope you are doing well enough that you don't need to, but if you need to, I will certainly step in. If that's okay with everybody else, it may not be.
You know, I think Janelle brings a certain legal expertise to that conversation that might be.
Yeah, I agree.
She certainly does. And what I would think, though, if she has to come from the other committee to this other side, I think that Jeff and I probably, not that I don't want to, Janelle, now. I don't want to get into that. But I think that Jeff and I could handle that piece as long as we got the information. And should you have to go and do that, Rabbi?
That would be fine. That would be fine.
Okay.
Okay, are we set? Do we need to do another vote for Janelle and Ethelene, Commissioner Janelle and Ethelene?
Well, we only made a motion, Ethelene did, to have 2 or 3 commissioners deal with the harassment and that, but we seconded that and everything, but we didn't have a motion for either group here yet.
Okay. I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion that Commissioner Janelle and Epseline, look at the harassment, portion within the commission here and bring back some recommendations to the next meeting.
Okay, I'll second that. And what about our group then? Should we have a motion?
No, we gotta go. We gotta finish.
I thought that Etheline's motion, you know, she named us.
Okay, all right. I can. All right, do we all have to approve then? The motion
That one was already done. We didn't do the piece with Janelle and
yeah.
Epseline. That's the piece that we didn't do.
Okay.
So is there a motion for that?
Yeah, Mike just made it, Jeff seconded it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everybody in favor, say aye.
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 All right. Anybody opposed?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Pacora?
Okay.
All right. Motion carries. Now we have a case, I believe.
I'm seeing that it's 1:58, I'm waiting on a response from the captioner of whether they can stay beyond 2. This is a public accommodations case involving disability discrimination, design and construction case. There is a restaurant that does not have an accessible restroom. This case was filed, and then the parties resolved it in mediation. The respondent paid the complainant damage, or to resolve the complaint, and they agreed to have the elevator to the restroom put back in working order, and that ended up not happening within the time frame outlined under the agreement, and the complainant refiled the complaint, and the respondent was allegedly working to get the elevator back in working order. It had not happened to date. I would recommend that we don't take this to hearing and let the complainant pursue this independently through a direct action, just because we don't have the capacity to take another case to hearing right now.
I so move.
Second.
All right. Everybody in favor, say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? All right. Motion carries. So the letter D, I'm not sure if we want to discuss it here, or do we want to go on a closed meeting for this? So just wanted everybody's opinion and how everybody wants to move forward with that.
Well, I'm wondering if it should be a special meeting. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know how everybody, what do you guys think?
I think that it's going to take care of itself, because the response will be made by the deadline. I think unless we got something that we want to try to iron out a process, and I think we ought to come back, and that ought to be a part of the process that we come back with as well. But I think this one irons itself out by the response, unless we want to talk about I think this one irons itself out because it's gonna. I mean, we don't have. She don't have to respond to the 10th of June, and so that's going to be done. It's going to take care of itself.
Okay.
Well, can we know what the response is going to be? Or can we not discuss that in open session?
Yes, I think it would be appropriate unless it violates some kind of law or rule that I don't particularly know about. So
The response to the complaint,
The response to the FOIA.
it would be the response to the FOIA, the documents that were asked for.
the link will be provided.
The Public Information Board complaint, they asked for the minutes for the meeting that were not approved until today, from May 20th. So they asked for that and the recording.
And also, I
So
think
they
the
would-
list of who was in there.
Attendees.
Yeah.
Well, that's in the minutes.
Yeah, here, May 20th, everybody was present but Commissioner Carp and Pecora.
That's not the one that they were looking for. They were looking for the general meeting.
No,
Oh, maybe
No,
not.
Cora was there.
Oh, the May meeting. Oh.
The regular one or the special one on the 20th?
the special meeting is what they're
Oh, okay.
looking for.
Yeah, the special meeting, there was 5 of us.
Mm-hmm.
On May 20th?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm not clear on whether the complaint to the Public Information Board also includes an open meetings
I have
complaint. What's your view on that, Latrice?
Yeah, it's an open meetings complaint and an open records complaint.
And how do you intend to respond to the open meetings complaint?
That it wasn't a violation.
Is there an exception that you're going to cite?
For
not admitting a
the
member
meeting
of-
was open, so, well, I didn't hear the theme beep, so what we were doing was sharing the screen, and I also am looking at a separate document that was not shared on the screen, so the screen sharing function disappeared. So when the meeting started, as it does for every other meeting, when everybody joins, they're in the waiting room, and so I just let everyone in. So everyone else got in.
So you're going to respond that it was just an inadvertent, unintentional mistake, and that's all you can say?
Yeah.
So are they is there any request that you feel that you cannot fulfill?
I don't think so. I think what it asked for was the documents, those specific documents. So I think Mallory's request is asking for a document that's not a public record, so that will be explained, but we already talked about that in the previous meeting, so.
Because it's a draft?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the video of this was not available till now? Is that-
The video has to be uploaded to YouTube along with the transcript and stuff for the
Okay.
captioning.
Yeah.
So the question is then there should not be any issues when you respond. Is that correct? Is that how I read?
That's correct. and Mallory's request was specifically that you all are not held responsible, that only I be held responsible, because I'm your counsel, even though she's communicating directly with you.
I have a question about the complaint. Does Mallory's addressing the complaint, sending that complaint to all of the members of the commission, constitute a violation of the open meetings law?
No, the open meetings violation would be if the commissioners are deliberating about something via email outside of the public process. But what Mallory is doing is arguably an ethical violation because she's communicating with a body that is represented directly rather than communicating through their attorney. And she's making the argument within the complaint that I should be held liable because I am the commission's counsel, but then still communicating directly with the commission. She's effectively asking that her client, the city, I work for the commission, so if I'm engaging in something, behavior that is inappropriate in the course of my conduct, presumably that would be something that the commission would need to, or I'm accused of it, the commission would need to indemnify me for that, so they would need to pay for legal representation, which would then be taxpayer dollars, which then goes back to the city being responsible for paying for that action. So she's effectively asking for her client, which is the city, to be legally liable for defending me in an action that she filed, which was harassment. That's what she's asking for.
I have another question, and that is, out of this complaint, which is about our open meetings and about recordings, do we want to put on our agenda how we avoid these problems in the future, about how, about what is our policy about recordings, with whom are they shared, and how do we make sure that people are not, left in the waiting room? I mean, that would not be for today. That would be for a future meeting.
The commission already voted on the recording aspect of it a few months ago, and I think that's the only time that that's happened. And that's because of what we were doing, which was sharing the person came to the meeting late. So the meeting had already started. So when the meeting started, I let everyone in. And I don't know if you all have done screen sharing, but when you do screen sharing, it drops off the other portions of the normal screen. So when you're screen sharing, you have the document that you're actually sharing. And then I was also looking at the document that we were talking about and looking at the time that they joined. I think I was mid-statement. I was being asked a question. So I didn't hear it beep. I don't know if it did beep, but I didn't hear it beep. And there might be a setting on there that stops it from beeping. I'm not sure, because it could be that we have all of these security settings in place to stop people from Zoom bombing us. So just like joining after the meeting started and start yelling stuff. So, but that's the only time that that's happened. So, and the members of the public were there. So.
Well, and maybe this, this could be part of the recommendations. I mean, you're going to take up this whole issue you know, and maybe you can talk about how, we can maybe anticipate some of these requests and I think, unless I'm wrong, I think that we voted to record our meetings, but I think we voted or didn't vote on whether to post the meeting on the city website ourselves. Is that your recollection, Latrice?
My recollection was that there was a vote to record, but not to upload.
Yeah. And certainly we can revisit that anytime if it just makes sense to revisit it and discuss it again.
And I think that the underlying issue is that you spoke to Mallory and Jerry and explained that to them. So they are both aware that that was the vote. So the presentation to the commission as if there is some confusion about that is disingenuous at best.
But like I say, that is something that this small committee can certainly take up and make recommendations about. So I think that's part of this committee's charge.
All right. So where are we at now? Do we want to move on or any further discussion on that?
I would think like Michael, that basically we have covered this item on the agenda through some lengthy discussions on other items on the agenda.
So are we done with that item?
So,
I think so. I think we're good. I think all the questions have been answered and addressed, and I think it's going to solve itself here. So I believe so.
Okay. We don't need to set another meeting or anything like that, right? Okay. All right.
I don't think so.
Okay. Let's move on to old business. Update on the policing reform.
Okay, well, there are two things that maybe two and a half things that I want to present before you. First of all, Ruby and I had a meeting with the mayor concerning our recommendations. And while the mayor is pretty insistent that basically the city has done all it needs to do concerning our recommendations, with which I disagree. There was one recommendation, the seventh recommendation, actually a part of the seventh recommendation, which we had a good dialogue on. And remember, the seventh recommendation, the last recommendation in our list of recommendations, was to take a serious look and adapt some of the items that were found in the Des Moines legislation concerning policing reforms. And one item in that talked about filing complaints. And it gave an option. And the option was that you could go to basically their HR department. I forget what they actually call it in the legislation there, or you can file your complaint with the Civil Rights Commission. And while we do have, actually, we've always had the power, the ability to receive policing complaints. We haven't really done much of that or any of that, at least in my tenure on the commission. We haven't really made that known. Yet we did receive last spring and last summer in Latrice's listening sessions and in our community forums, several expressions of concern about the way complaints handled in the police department, and that there are people who are afraid to file complaints with the police department for fear of retribution on the part of the police. So if we would be willing to take on, to take on the opportunity, provide the community with the opportunity, if they wish to file a complaint against the police and they are concerned about filing it with the police channels, to file it with us instead, and that we would treat it as we would treat other civil rights complaints, then the mayor said that coming from us and reporting to the police and to the city that we have received such and such a complaint would carry more weight and get things done more effectively. And so I would like to propose that we take up that responsibility and make it known to the public that if they are uncomfortable filing complaints with the police, they can file their complaint with us. And we will carry it forward for them.
Fine. The police department does notify people that they can come over. They actually send people over to us to do both the internal affairs and the if they want to file a complaint with the Civil Rights Commission, they can do that as well. We don't usually take complaints against the city in any area just to avoid the appearance of a conflict of interest. But yeah, you're right. We do have the authority to do that. Did the mayor suggest giving us additional funding to address that?
No, he did not say that if we were carrying that ball forward, that there would be more scrutiny.
I think
we would provide more scrutiny as well. I mean, if someone filed a complaint with us and we brought it to the attention of the police department, and let's say the police department ignored it, or worse yet, if there was an act of retaliation, then they could, then we would, file an additional complaint. And, we would be more in a place to be more watchdogs of these. Hopefully that would begin to address the concern people had about fear of filing complaints with the police.
I think, especially considering the statistics about how often when people file complaints, they end up having to turn around and file retaliation complaints because they are inevitably retaliated against, because people are upset that you had the audacity to file a complaint against them in the first place. It would seem to be that the change should be something that they would enact greater penalties involving the police department engaging in retaliation. That be some sort of because what he's suggesting is something that already violates the law. So it's not like that's not a change. I mean, currently they're not allowed to engage in discrimination, and currently they're not allowed to retaliate against people for complaining about the retaliation. But I don't think that they have anything in place now that they enforce that there is some concrete outlined action that happens if you engage in retaliation, and that it is going to happen. And that should be a citywide policy, actually, because that would have addressed this issue with Mallory Hoyt. That would need to be more effective. I don't know. I do know that we don't have staff to even address all of the complaints that we currently have, and I think that if we want to start accepting complaints against the city, there will be more allegations from the legal department that our staff is targeting them, which is Rich, and that it's not a fair process. And no one is addressing the current issues with those allegations. So I think it would be a continuation or exacerbation of that existing issue.
Yeah, I think that's something that we could probably go back and ask them to maybe provide some more funds over here as they relook their budgets, and they might be amenable to that. So I think we just need to probably go back and ask for, at least do an ask anyway and stuff. So.
I'd just like to make a note that one of the commissioners left the meeting.
Oh.
Like Richard left the meeting.
Okay. Well, do you want to, at this point, take Michael's suggestion and go back to the mayor and to the city and say, we would be willing to do this, but we need more staff to do it, and we need therefore more funds to do it.
Or is it going to be a conflict situation?
Well, how can it be a conflict situation when we already have the power? I mean, we can't say we have the power, but we exercise the power, that creates a conflict.
Well, I mean, as it currently stands, we have the power to accept complaints against the city, but as a practical matter, don't we refer those, Latrice, to the Iowa Civil Rights Commission?
Yeah, we do help people get them filled out, though. So we do assist in that capacity. Yeah. But, I mean, like I said, people file complaints and through our office with HUD and EEOC against the city and Iowa Civil Rights Commission, and they turn around and allege that staff or the commissioners are engaging in harassment towards the city. So that part needs to be addressed.
Well, if people file, let's say a person files a complaint against an officer for doing something inappropriate, okay? That the case that I think of is where you had shared with us the report that this one girl was being beaten up by a bunch of girls, and one of the other girls' moms, and two police officers were sitting in their squad car watching this take place and did nothing to intervene. But when they finished beating her up, the officers came out of their squad car and took a report with the attackers standing right by. That's inappropriate. Now, if that complaint came to us and we took it to the city, we took it to the police department and said, do something about this, act on this, not just sending it off to the Iowa Civil Rights Commission, but we've spoken to the police department and said, this is a complaint that's been filed, officially filed with us. What are you gonna do about it? You know, then,
They will submit a response and say that we solicited that person to file a complaint against them and then start making liability.
no, they can say that from
statements
today
against
till
them.
tomorrow, but all we did was say, we are open to receiving complaints, you know, publicly, of police misconduct. If you are uncomfortable, filing those complaints with the Internal Affairs Department of the Police.
We currently do that though. We currently publicize that, and the police department does that. They send people over to us.
They
to do
send
that
people
part of it.
over, but the people that they send over are people who were not afraid of retaliation and filed their complaint with the police department. But, you know, we're talking about, as you reported to us, that there are several people, you know, out there who, feel
But nothing
fear.
prevents them from people come in to file those complaints and they are still afraid to submit the complaint because they're afraid of being retaliated against. Because because guess what? The police can magically find drugs in your house and take your children. Do you want to risk that? Can you afford to risk that? I mean, that comes from a place of privilege and thinking that the only thing that is stopping them is the legal ramification of they're being prevented from engaging in harassment, because they are currently not allowed to engage in harassment, but they still do. And so the remedy it would seem would come on the city side, which is them implementing something saying, we are not going to allow this to happen. Because I can for sure tell you that I personally have had allegations submitted to regulatory agencies claiming that I have solicited complaints from people. So then I have to waste my time and my personal money hiring an attorney to defend me for an allegation that the city is making based not in fact or anything else. So if I'm experiencing that as a staff member of the commission, what is the expectation of what people are going to experience as members of the public? Because this is what's happening as a commission staff member.
But if this, that's part of the harassment that you receive inappropriately. But if this commission makes a statement as a commission that we are open to receiving complaints of police misconduct, if people are uncomfortable filing those complaints with the police department, and we will carry those complaints forward. Then if they come to you and say, and say you are soliciting, the answer is no. This commission has announced that it is open to receiving and processing complaints. That has nothing to do with going to a person and saying, why don't you come to us and complain? It is about people choosing to come to us.
I understand that, and I suspect so do they. They don't care. And the issue is the allegations being put out there and then you having to respond to it. The same way, there have been people who have filed complaints and then they have allegations made that impact their lives. And the only thing they can do is file another complaint. In the meantime, their lives are being impacted. And currently, that's something that's already illegal. Currently, the bigger bang for the buck would seem for the city to have a process in place where they address that, because the issue of harassment with people who are on the city's payroll should be being addressed by the city, not to say, why don't we create an additional responsibility for the commission? I mean, we already do that. We do help people. We sit down and go over the process with them, explain it to them. We go over the process of how they would file a complaint with the Department of Justice. We do that now, but we just don't conduct the investigation. I mean, I think we have seen exactly what happens. That's I don't know.
Anybody else want to kick in on this?
I got some comments, but guys, I'm gonna have to leave. I got another meeting I gotta go and take and stuff. So, but I do think it's one that we probably ought to look at and stuff. And so, with that said, I'll just let it go because.
Should we table it till the next
Yeah.
meeting?
Yep, I think that would be great.
But Mike, before you do leave, there's a second issue. And that is coming out of legislation from the state. And, two pieces of legislation from the state and one experience that unfortunately Latrice went through. And that is part of the Back to Blue legislation empowers police departments to use unmarked cars for traffic stops. Okay? And the other legislation is that as of July 1st, anyone in the state of Iowa can buy a gun without a permit, without a background check that was signed by the governor. And so what happens is, the situation that's happened, Latrice's daughter was stopped by an unmarked car one night. And anybody having an unmarked car following them would be frightened. Anybody. And how much more so if you're a member of a targeted minority. And if someone comes up to your car and especially if you're a targeted minority and you're a woman, and they come and they blind you with a flashlight, that's a very threatening situation. Now, with July 1st, people being able to just go out and buy guns helter-skelter, we're facing a situation where someone feeling threatened by such a traffic stop may wind up with a gun in their hand, shooting to protect themselves. And then we question, this person shot a police officer and all the severe penalties. To all of this, I think we need to make a strong recommendation that the confluence of these two laws create a danger to the public health, and that we wish to strongly encourage the Davenport Police Department not to use unmarked cars for traffic stops, because the Back to Blue law says they can, not that they must. And that if they do it, they create a danger of more gun violence. Specifically at a time when they just made a media announcement as to their deep concerns about the increasing gun violence.
I agree wholeheartedly with that, Rabbi Karp, and that's something that I also would take back to the law enforcement group that we meet with twice a month and stuff, and get a readout on what their policy is, and strongly encourage that as well there. So, and see what we get.
I'm gonna have to leave. I have a doctor appointment that I have to go to, so. Have a good-
Rabbi, do you want us to vote on this?
Oh. I thought we are gonna table this for next meeting.
Oh,
We can
okay.
table this one for next meeting as well.
Yeah. All right,
Okay.
everyone.
But, okay, if we have two people leave, we're not gonna have four. We've had three people leave.
You don't have anything else you need to vote on anyway, you just got the public comment that's coming
Okay.
up, so.
All right, so then
So what is the actual tabling that,
we're tabling, the discussion about, the issue of whether or not we should be, publicizing, and accepting, policing complaints as a civil rights commission.
okay,
And, we're tabling, the discussion about how we should respond to, the confluence of the using of unmarked cars for traffic stops, especially at night. And, but period, and how that creates a public danger, with the increased, availability of weapons, according to the law passed by the legislature and going into effect on July 1st.
Okay, guys, I'll catch you guys on the next time around. Hey, everybody stay safe, take care.
okay,
Thank you, Mike.
bye-bye.
Thanks, Mike. So I guess then that takes us to public. Latrice, you got anybody in the waiting room wanting to make comments?
They're in the meeting part. It looks like Dan, A, unmuted.
Yes, thank you all for serving on this very important commission. Work through these communication personality difficulties. All I would have to say there is the structure exists for a reason, so there's not personalities involved. An email is a very, sanitary way of communicating. Follow the protocol, keep the information flow going. Rabbi Karp, best wishes to you.
Thank you.
I think just like the very end of this discussion, is what we're up against as a community. The community is sending the city a message. I don't want to get into the gun violence and the stolen cars, but there's angst within Davenport, and learning of dysfunction in city government doesn't seem to be addressing solutions. I thank all of you again for being very volunteering of your time and working through these issues. At the end of the day, civil rights is where it's at. Union rights are civil rights. Human rights are civil rights. Marriage rights are civil rights. This is it for us. And across this country, we're on a knife's edge. And right now, this commission is all that the public has that's at least hearing, what's going on out there. So thank all of you for what you do. Work through the issues, make it a functioning commission, because you can do a lot of good for the community. And that's pretty much what I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Anybody else?
I don't see anyone else.
Okay, then let's get to, but Yeah, we have the next meeting after we adjourn. Do we need to change the order of the agenda so that we can talk about what we're putting on the agenda for next meeting before we adjourn?
I think it usually comes up during discussion and people, it's usually referenced during the meeting, because it doesn't need a vote, so it's usually brought up. I don't think it has been an issue.
Okay, so then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I second.
Okay, and the next meeting scheduled for July 13th.
Okay. Then, all in favor of adjournment, raise your hands and say aye. Aye,
Aye, goodbye.
Aye, goodbye.
Have a good day, everyone.
Have a good
Thanks
day.
all.
Thank you.
Goodbye.